Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Okay, so in previous classes, or specifically the previous class, we started looking into the mode shapes and frequencies of multi-degree of freedom system. Okay, so we looked at multi-degree of freedom system and we talked about frequencies or time period. Okay, interchangeably, of course, and mode shapes. Okay, and we took an example of a two-story building. Okay, either this, let us say K1, K2, okay, and M1, M2. And we said that in general, when you apply a load on a multi-degree of freedom system, okay, the displacement of each degree of freedom, okay, in general, it is not harmonic. Okay. However, there would exist some characteristic shape through which if you apply initial displacement, then the resulting motion would be harmonic for each degree of freedom. Okay, and those characteristic shapes are called mode shapes. And we also try to understand in the context that a structure, unlike a single degree of freedom system, now because we have multiple masses, multiple degree of freedom and stiffnesses, basically the total response depends on the mass, stiffness, okay, and if it's a damped system, then damping, okay. But also now we need to consider their distribution, okay. So that is one additional thing that we need to consider in multi-degree of freedom system. And that distribution, the total mass, stiffness, damping, and the distribution actually decides how the system is going to respond. Okay. And mode shapes basically represents the unique shapes in which a structure could possibly deflect. Okay. So it is not the response, but it is one of the possible ways in which structure can deflect. Okay. And we said that a mode shape, if it's, let us say, for the jth mode, can be written as in terms of modal coordinates for each degree of freedom. Let us say 1j, 2j, 5ij, and so on. Okay, up to the degree of freedom that it has. Okay, this represents the modal coordinate or the modal. The overall vector is the phi j. Okay, now we could have several such mode shapes, and if we have n degrees of freedom, we would have n mode shapes. The total response actually would be, okay, a linear combination of these mode shapes. So let us say phi 1, phi 2, okay, and so on. And these factors that we'll have, those factors are actually going to determine which of the mode shapes contributes, okay, relatively how much to the total response. All right. And we basically discuss methods how to get the frequency, okay, and these mode shapes by solving eigenvalue problem. Okay, which was basically, if we have a stiffness matrix K, then K phi was equal to omega n square times mass matrix times again the mode shape. Okay, and for each frequency we got one mode shape. Okay, and that frequency represented the frequency of vibration of that particular mode. So remember, for multi-degree of freedom system, the frequency is defined for a mode, not for a degree of freedom. So you do not go ahead and, like, you find out what is the basically frequency of vibration or frequency of oscillation of a particular degree of freedom. So you are not going to go ahead and find out what is the frequency of vibration of this or this. Okay, these two degrees of freedom, but these mode shapes and frequencies represent the frequency of vibration and shape for a particular mode. Okay. So this is the basic premise of a multi-degree of freedom system. Okay. Now what we are going to do, so till now we have just learned about the mode shapes and the frequency, and we said that these are the properties of the structure, not the applied load. Okay, so every structure would have frequencies and mode shapes. Okay, any multi-degree of freedom system. We still need to get into how to find out solution to free vibration response. Okay, for damped and for an undamped and damped system. All right. Now, before getting into that, let us first see what are the properties of these mode shapes. Okay, when you study vector, okay, vector algebra and matrix algebra, you see that we have some useful properties of these matrices and vectors that helps us in finding out some useful solution. And you know, the whole matrix and vector algebra is like that. I mean, these are just a combination of numbers written in a certain form. Okay, so that it makes it easier for us to do large scale calculation. That is all there is about matrices. Okay, matrix is just a combination of numbers arranged in a certain way. Okay, so we are going to look at some important properties of these mode shapes which would help us in finding out the solution to free vibration response and also later to forced vibration response. Okay, so let us look into that. Okay, so we know that if I have an n degree of freedom system, okay, I can have mode shape 1, mode shape 2, and similarly mode shape n for the all n degrees of freedom, where 1, 2, 3 again I can write it like this. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to define a mode shape matrix, not a vector, which is for which each column is basically one of the mode shape like this. Okay, and of course you can either write it, so each of these are actually a vector. Okay, so that if you want to write in here, you can write it as phi 1 1, phi 2 1, and so on, phi n1. Similarly, phi 1 2, phi 2 2, and then phi n2. Okay, so on. So basically phi is a mode shape matrix, okay, which is nothing but, in short, we can also write it as made up of elements phi ij. Okay, this is called a modal matrix. Okay. Again, try to understand, this does not have any, it does not come from any like, you know, physical experiment or anything like that. I'm just defining it like that so that when I do later matrix manipulation calculation or some algebraic calculation, then my life is a little bit easier if I define a quantity like this. Similarly, what I'm going to do, I have frequencies, right, which are the eigenvalues of the eigenvalue problem that I've solved. Now those are omega n square, right? Those are not actually omega n. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to define another matrix which is called a spectral matrix, and this matrix has basically these frequencies along the diagonal elements. So it is a diagonal matrix. All these diagonal off diagonal terms are 0. Okay, and this is the modal matrix here. Okay, and this one is spectral matrix. Name does not matter, just remember that these are the quantities that represent these matrices. Okay, now the eigenvalue problem that I have is what? K times, okay, so for nth mode I can write it as k phi n times m phi n. Okay, and then I have omega n square. Okay, so this is for the nth mode. Now, if I combine all the modes in a single equation, I can utilize these two matrices to write down, okay, a single equation for all the modes, not only for the nth mode. How do I do that? You can write it like K phi modal matrix, okay, not vector, equal to M again modal matrix, and this times the spectral matrix. Okay, so this is for all modes. Okay, and when you expand this, you will basically get n such equations. Okay, and that you can verify. All right. Is this clear to all of you what I'm doing here? Just matrix manipulation, that is all. Okay, so this is in terms for a single mode and this is for all the modes. Okay, just keep that in mind, that equation. Now, let us come to a very, very important property of these mode shapes. Okay, so some mode shape characteristics. And one characteristic that we are specifically going to talk about is orthogonality. Now, first understand what this orthogonality means. Okay, we have said that if I have a multi-degree of freedom system and if it undergoes vibration due to either, let us say, ground excitation or nodal load or whatever, then the total response is actually made up of several modes. Okay, so this mode could be something like this. Okay, or it could be something like, let us say, this. Okay, and no, not this, sorry. Something like this. Okay, or there could be a third mode as well. Okay, which again we can write like this. Sorry. Okay, so depending upon, and if I have n degree of freedom system like that, the total response is due to each of these modes. And these modes are independent of each other. Remember, all modes are independent of each other. Okay. Now, if these are independent of each other, can I make the claim that if a structure is vibrating in its nth mode shape, it won't do any work, or the work done by the inertial forces in the nth mode would be zero in the rth mode if the nth and rth mode are different? Okay, so all I'm saying, if a structure has certain response, okay, and if the inertial forces are defined in the nth mode, it won't do any work due to displacement in the any other mode. Okay, so the physical interpretation is that inertial forces, okay, inertial forces in nth mode does not do any work due to displacements in any other mode. Okay, so displacement in, let us say, rth mode, where r is not equal to n. Okay, so this is the physical interpretation. Now let us see what does it mean mathematically. Okay, mathematically, okay, what is the work done, or what is the inertial forces in the nth mode of any system? Let me write down. I know that, okay, I know that the displacement in the nth mode, okay, can be written as un equal to phi n, which is the mode shape, times the modal coordinate. Okay, we represented it through q and t, which is the time variation, right? So remember, this is nth mode. Okay. If I double differentiate this, I would get acceleration in the nth mode for all the degrees of freedom, which would be this. So the inertial forces in the nth mode, okay, would be mass matrix times the acceleration vector. Okay. And I can write this as mass times phi n times q n double dot t. So this is the inertial force in the nth mode. Okay. Now the displacement in the rth mode, I can again similarly write like this, except now this is the rth mode, so it would be mode shape for the rth vector times qrt. Okay. Now if you look at it, what would be the work done by this force? Okay, due to this displacement, undergoing this displacement, the work done is basically equal to the force times displacement, that we write simply. Okay, but here in terms of matrix algebra, we write force transpose. Okay, so whatever the force vector you have times the displacement vector. Okay, so I'm going to write it like this. So this is the force in the nth mode. So let me write down n here. Okay, inertial force in the nth mode, and this is the displacement in the rth mode. When we multiply that, we get the work done. Now, if we multiply that, let us see what do we get. Okay, I can write this as minus m times phi n times, this is a constant. So let me do this, take it outside, or let me just keep that. Remember, there is a transpose here, so I have to take transpose of this. So you know that AB transpose is what? B transpose times A transpose, right? I hope you know these relationships. Okay, so if I take transpose of this one, I would basically get phi n t times M transpose. Now, if it's a diagonal matrix, or for that matter, if it's a symmetric matrix, okay, transpose of the matrix is the matrix itself if it's a symmetric matrix. Okay, so this is phi n, phi t times mt, and then I have this term as well, which I will write after I write this, and then I have phi r times qrt, and then just write q and t here. Okay, so all I'm saying in this case, there's a negative sign here, that as the modes are independent of each other, and if inertial force in one mode does not do any work in the displacement in other mode, the work done should be equal to 0, right? And if you get that equal to 0, remember qr and qt cannot be equal to 0 because they are finite displacements. What you get as phi n times m here, because of symmetric matrix, times phi r equal to 0. Okay, so basically orthogonality states that, okay, if I have different modes, okay, corresponding to different frequencies, okay, so let us say the orthogonality, if two different modes are there, so that omega n is not equal to omega r, then if you multiply transpose of one to the other shape vector like this, okay, this would be equal to 0, and same for the stiffness matrix, this would be equal to 0. Okay, this condition is satisfied. Okay, and we can prove this mathematically as well. Okay, how can we prove that? if you look at our eigenvalue problem, what was our eigenvalue problem for nth mode? Okay, our eigenvalue problem was k times, let us say, phi n, okay, is equal to omega n times m times phi n. So this was for nth mode. For rth mode, what do we have? Again, same k times, now we have phi r, and this is omega r times m times phi r. Okay, sorry, these are omega n square and omega r square. Okay, so these two equations I have for nth mode and rth mode. And let us say equation 2, okay, equation 2 I pre-multiply with phi n, okay, phi n to the power, say t. Okay, what do we get? Okay, so let us do one thing. Let us pre-multiply this equation by phi r to the power transpose, and this equation by phi n to the power transpose. Okay, and then second equation, okay, so I'll have on the right hand side as well. Second equation, let us take the transpose of the whole equation so that it becomes phi r transpose times k times phi n is equal to omega r square, okay, phi r transpose m phi n t. This I have got by taking transpose of the second equation. So I pre-multiplied with the each other's frequencies transpose. Okay, so maybe I should write here as well. Okay, this is omega n square and phi r to the transpose, and this is omega r square phi n to the transpose. Okay, and the second equation I've took transpose, I got this, the third equation. Now if I take equation 1 minus equation 3, what do we get? If you look at carefully, this term is same as this term here. Okay, so I get 0 equal to omega n square minus omega r square. I have omega n here and omega r here. Okay, times phi r to the power transpose minus phi n. Okay, this is equal to 0. Now, if omega n is not equal to omega r, okay, I can say that phi r times mass times phi n would be equal to 0. Okay, so this is for the mass. Same thing I can also derive for the stiffness. If I just substitute mass phi n equal to, okay, the k times phi n times divided by omega square. Okay, so that I can derive for the stiffness as well, the same expression. Sorry, this is stiffness here. And we will see why we are doing all these things. Okay, now phi here is n is equal to 0. Okay, so remember, if I have two different mode, phi n and phi r, then if I take one mode, okay, take the transpose of that mode shape, okay, multiply with this m or k vector times the some other mode shape, okay, you will get that as 0. This is called orthogonality of mode shapes. And it's a very useful conclusion, and that we utilize in solving all our multi-degree of freedom system. Just say orthogonality of modes. Okay, if we have this, okay, can you tell me what would I get a matrix K that I write as modal matrix, not the vector, phi t times the stiffness matrix times phi. What would I get this as? Can I write phi, the modal matrix, as first vector phi 1, second vector phi 2, and so on, let us say the last vector, times the K matrix, which would have term, let us say K11, K12, and so on. Okay, K21, let us say Kij, and so on. So diagonal and off diagonal in general matrix. Okay. And then I have again the same phi matrix, but now these are transpose here. Okay, sorry, this is the transpose. I should have written like this. So maybe I should. This is this whole to the power transpose here. Okay, and this I'm going to write it as the vector phi 1, phi 2, and phi n. So this is a transpose of this vector. Okay, now if we multiply this, what we are going to get basically, okay, at any position, okay, this position would be along the diagonal. I would get elements like phi, let us say n, or let us call it j, phi j times the stiffness matrix k times phi j. And the off diagonal term, we are going to get something like phi I, remember this is transpose here, phi I transpose times the stiffness matrix times the some other mode. So off diagonal term, this type of elements, diagonal terms, I would have the same mode transpose multiplied with this. So can I say if I utilize the orthogonality property, then for this matrix here, which is the capital K matrix, all the off diagonal terms are going to be equal to 0. And this matrix would have only diagonal terms. Okay, so this would be equal to 0, and the matrix that I would have would only have these elements which are represented through the diagonal elements. Let us call them Kn. Okay, so let us K11, K22, K33 like only the diagonal elements. Okay, this Knn is nothing but phi transpose. Okay, so let me write this as diagonal. Okay, K matrix times phi. And the same thing I can repeat for the mass matrix, that my capital matrix, which is for all the modes. Okay, if I take my mass matrix, multiply it with the transpose of the modal matrix. Okay, and then here I would again get mass matrix, which would only have diagonal terms because all off diagonal terms are 0 utilizing the orthogonality of the mode shapes. So it will have elements along the diagonal terms. Okay, let me write down as Mn 0, 0 here. So this is a diagonal matrix. Okay. And Mn, the diagonal term is basically nothing but phi n times mass matrix times. Okay. So keep in mind the difference between the small mass matrix, the M, which is we actually derive from the structure, and this capital M is when we combine all the modes. So this is the overall mass matrix. Okay. So this is M phi this. Okay. This is the diagonal term. Okay. Now the question becomes, why do we need that? Why do we need a diagonal matrix? Okay. If you remember in the last class, I said to you that the equation of free vibration is something like this. Okay, equal to 0. And these are n coupled equation. And how were they coupled? They were coupled through mass matrix and the stiffness matrix in general. Okay, so the equation that we had got was something as M11 times M12 M21 times M22, let us say for 2 degree of freedom. Okay, these were coupled mass. I get two coupled equation K11, K12, K21, K22. Okay. Now just imagine if somehow I am able to get mass matrices that are diagonal, then what will happen? Let us look at like this. Okay, and let us say this is fictitious right now. I have not yet come to that conclusion. So this is u1 u2 plus k1 0 k2 times u1 u2. If I get the diagonal mass and diagonal stiffness matrix, what equation do I get? M u1 double dot plus k1 u1 is equal to 0, m2 u2 double dot plus k2 u2 equal to 0. As opposed to this case in which the two equations that we were getting, they were m11 u1 double dot plus m12 u2 double dot plus k11 u1 plus k12 u2 equal to 0. This was my first equation. The second equation was m21 u1 dot, then m22 u2 double dot, then k21 u1 plus k22 u2. Now, the reason I said to you, you cannot solve this equation independently because you had variable u1 and u2 both in the same equation. So you cannot solve this directly. So these were coupled equations. But if somehow I can diagonalize my mass matrix and the stiffness matrix, then I get two independent equations. Okay. And each of these equations can be solved separately because the first equation has only u1 and the second equation has only u2. Okay. And these are for each mode. So if we have n number of modes, I will get n such equation. Is this clear to you up to this point? Why we are trying to diagonalize it? So that we can uncover our equation of motion. Okay, so our equation of motion is uncoupled into n equation of motion for each degree of freedom. Okay, and that I write something like this. Is this clear to all of you? Anybody has any doubt? Okay, so that, yes.
Sir, what is the physical interpretation of orthogonality?
Physical interpretation, we just started with that, right? Physical interpretation, I said that if you consider the total response to be made up of n independent mode shapes, and mode shapes, we are assuming that they are independent. Okay. Now, what do you need? What do you understand by independent? That if I do, or if I vibrate in one mode, that mode has nothing. That mode is independent of all other modes. So that mode is not going to do any work or any kind of interaction with any other mode. And this comes from your mathematics. You guys would have studied basis vectors, right? So each vector is independent of each other. Then any vector cannot be represented as a linear combination of any other vectors. Okay, something similar to you have here. All the mode shapes are basically independent vectors that represents the mode shape. So as I said, this 3 degree of freedom system can possibly oscillate in one of these modes. Okay, but the total response is actually some contribution of each of these modes. Okay, the way we are defining these mode shapes, we are saying that each mode shape is independent. So by definition itself, if you are in this mode shape, you are not doing any work in any other mode shape. And that was the orthogonality of mode shapes mean. Okay, is that clear?
Yes, sir. Okay.
Anybody else? Okay. Anyway, remember here you would not exactly have u1 and u2 because here you would have actually not u1 and u2 but q1 and q2 here. So maybe I should correct it. And the equation you get in terms of q1 and q2. Okay, although those are independent, but now q1 represents the modal coordinate. Okay, remember your u is nothing but phi times q. Okay, so we solve it for n modes and then we combine it together. We are going to come back to that, but I'm just giving you why do we actually doing all these things, or orthogonality of mode shapes and trying to get the diagonal matrix and all those things, because then I can uncouple the modes, get the response for each mode separately, like we did for single degree of freedom system. Remember, each mode is like a single degree of freedom system with a single frequency, okay, and a deflected shape, okay. So each mode I can solve using the equations that we have derived for single degree of freedom system. Now, after I have solved it for each mode, I'm going to combine them again using some factors. We are going to get into that. How do we derive those factors? That would be the next step. But it should be clear to you till now why we are doing this. Okay. Now, if we go like this, remember my Kn is phi n transpose times K matrix times phi. And my Mn is again phi n times mass matrix times phi. Okay, and these are the diagonal elements of the capital mass in the stiffness matrix, which represents the overall response. Okay, now in this case, okay, can I write down my Kn is nothing but omega n square Mn, the diagonal elements? Okay, I can do that, isn't it? I mean, if I write this expression here as omega n square times mass times phi n, and which I have got from the eigenvalue equation, right? K and phi n is omega n square times mass times phi n. This I get as, remember there's a transpose here. Okay, which is omega n square times Mn. So the diagonal elements are also related with this equation. Kn is equal to omega n square times Mn. Okay. All right. Once we see the orthogonality of the mode, okay, let us go ahead and discuss how do we basically calculate the different factors. We have been talking about that each mode is going to contribute to the total response, right? So let us see how do we get those factors. Okay, because once we get that, I would be able to combine different modes, okay, and then get the total response, because that is my final goal, right? Okay, now before going into that, let me just discuss one more thing. Remember in the last class I said that when we solve the eigenvalue problem, say this one, okay, when we solve this, I get frequency omega n, but phi I get, okay, in terms of ratios, okay, and that could be any ratio. So I also told you that there are different ways to normalize these mode shapes, okay, and sometimes what we do, one example we did in the last class, that if I have a deflected shape of a building, then we normalize with respect to the top floor displacement and then relative to that, okay, because phi you get the coordinates, or like, you know, the elements of phi you get by solving homogeneous equation, like something like this: phi 1 times some factor plus phi 1 times some factor, and it is equal to 0. So you have to assume one of these mode shape to get the one of these mode elements of the mode shape to get the other one. So you get in terms of ratios, okay, and it is your choice how do you normalize it. One way we discussed that, normalize with respect to some degree of freedom. Other ways could be you normalize it with respect to the degree of freedom that has highest displacement. Okay. I will also show you one way that is typically used when you implement this in a software program or something like that, where they actually normalize your mode shape such that either your mass matrix or the stiffness matrix is 1. Okay, so that, sorry, the Mn is actually equal to 1. Now what is Mn here? Remember, I'm just using this expression here. Okay, so you could also normalize this such that this becomes, okay, equal to 1. Okay, now if we do that, then what happens? My Kn becomes omega n square times 1. And if that is 1, then Kn is simply omega n square. So if you normalize your mode shapes, such that your mass elements are 1, or if you consider the overall mass matrix is actually identity 1, 1, 1 like that, and 0, 0 here. Okay, so that basically this is what phi t mass phi. Okay, then your kn become omega n square, or the k matrix, which is the kn here element diagonal, would become omega n square time like this, and this is nothing but the spectral matrix. Okay, so if you normalize such that the mass elements are n, all you need to do, find out the kn matrix, and you don't need to do the modal analysis. Can you see how simple this would become? Okay, so that's why it is some at many like implementation to software program or like an analysis, these are actually implemented like this. Okay, it's not that you have to do it. Okay, but I'm just letting you know that there are different ways in which the mode shifts can be normalized, because in general the mode shifts you get are in the ratio, and you could take any ratio. You could take 1 or 2, or you could also take 2 or 4 to represent the same mode shift.